Okay, next on the agenda, Mr. Darrell Cook has comments. First of the public to do so. Thank you.
Darrell Cook, South Walnut Street. How much did the borough collect for the no parking sign postings on Gay Street last year? Thank you.
Are there any other comments?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Stephen Lyons. I represent West Goshen Historic Commission, and I'm also on the president of Friends of Shiloh AME, a historic African Methodist Episcopal Church in Westtown Township. And it's come to our attention that there's been some planning going on concerning a Memorial Day event at Chestnut Grove, which is in our township. The issue of historic Black cemeteries is of monumental importance. And I don't understand why we weren't contacted in regards to planning. In the meeting minutes, it was described that Tom Walsh had stated that they were coordinating with our township. We received no information whatsoever. And we do want to do a Memorial Day event. It's vital, but it's also important that we start to connect the dots between these historic cemeteries, linking not only the families that are buried there, but the enormous history and starting to work together. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Hopefully we can put together an event that will honor our USCTCs and also the enormous legacy at Shiloh. But there's a connection. All of these sacred spaces are connected, and there are families that are buried at Shiloh that are also connected to Chestnut Grove. And when we're not coordinating together, we're losing multiple sources of information. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I respond? Mr. Lyons? Hi, I'm Lillian DeBaptiste. So Tom Walsh reached out to Chestnut Grove Cemetery, of which we are the caretakers privately for that cemetery. Both cemeteries are in West Goshen Township, yes, not Westchester, the borough. So they would have no input into this conversation. However, he reached out on behalf of the Historical Commission. And so I think your concern, it was not until yesterday evening that Mr. Butcher said something to me about the two of you being involved. So that is a question that and a conversation that we can have privately, but that's a private conversation that we should have. And I'll be happy to discuss it with you.
Okay. It's not quite clear to me why the meeting minutes of the Historic Commission would indicate that there is coordination with our township when we haven't been contacted at all.
I didn't know anything about that.
Okay.
I just know that he reached out and said, could they have a ceremony there for the original Memorial Day? He didn't say anything about West Goshen Township. This is a privately held cemetery, which we can have an event in the cemetery. Now, his coordination with you and your township is something that you probably need to discuss with him. But certainly, we're all on the same page in terms of preserving the history of it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mayor Baptiste, could respond a little bit to that, and you're correctly right. And I'm also a member of the Friends of Shiloh and also the Underground Railroad, and working with the cemeteries and restorations in hollow grounds of Pennsylvania. And you're correctly right. And what was happening, so we don't usurp. I'm on the Historic Commission for Westchester. So not the usurper, and I'm not speaking for the Historic Commission of Westchester. I'm talking about independent. I'm 605 West Market Street. I live in Westchester, there, Everett Butcher. So on that regard, and because of the misconnect, because of our contacts going through, and the way it's been put in the minutes and people have been seeing it publicly going on, it's been saying that it's in conjunction with the West Goshen. So that's where the misconnect was. So not to usurp authority going that way. I had to stay away from it that way until they came through it. So by our relationship as far as the Friends of Shiloh and that going forward, we're saying yes. And that's where the coordination was. And yes, it is private, and we know that. It's when it's put out to that way and people are expecting to see something there. You don't want to have something going on without, like yourself not being aware and the public not aware, and they think a conception of something else is not so. And going forward, you know, this is a community. So going forward, we all are going to work together with both communities. And this is going to lead into other things that are happening, hopefully down the line, just like the Historic Commission, that we get a center around here so we can augment what's going on to the Historical Center from this aspect, and we don't want to call it, we don't even call it Black history, do we? We call it inclusive history. So we're doing it as a community. So yes, and not to usurp you in any way, shape, or form. So that's what we're doing. Just
Mr. Walsh was here yesterday. I wish this conversation was held in his presence yesterday evening. I did not know until you said something to me after the meeting. So
right. And
again, we should not be using this venue to discuss it, but I'll be happy to discuss it with you and Mr. Welch.
and that's good to know.
Both are part of the same commission. You should both be working it out.
Yes,
But thank-
exactly,
thank you.
exactly,
Thank you
exactly.
for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments? Okay, moving on to comments by Borough Council and Mayor. Start with Ms. Vaccaro.
I first want to apologize that I was not here last evening. I was occupied elsewhere, but I am up to date and watched the full tape. It took a bit, so thank you for everything you put in last night. I wanted to share how much is going on in our borough right now and really celebrate that. So I'm going to not take away from the events because I'm sure those are going to be brought up over and over again. I'm going to do the list of new venues that have opened recently. So we have the beer hall now. We have Serum Kitchen is open now. Hello Honey Aesthetics is open. Dark Matter is open. And Nightingale Materials, which is an art supply store. So that's really exciting for me. I am really excited about how much activity is going on in our borough, how the businesses are really thriving, and our community is doing so much to support that. So thank you very much.
Mr. McGinnis.
Thank you, everyone. I just want to remind everyone about the April 23rd primary next Tuesday. Polls are open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. If you have a mail-in ballot, there is a drop box location at the Government Services Building, which is located at 601 West Town Road. Thank you.
Mr. Travis.
Yeah, mine's a little bit different tonight. I typically like to do a shout out, but I've been thinking about the last couple meetings that we've had, either committee or last night's meeting where we had standing room only, room fully packed, and a lot of emotion in the room again. And I'm wondering if there's something, because I felt like a lot of people were surprised and came and needed to be vocal about it or appear. If there's something that the borough can do, whether it's something about changing the way that we set agenda or communicate or the way that we word things in such a way that doesn't spook the public ahead of time, so that we can really focus on the agenda items that are important to us. I feel like we had some good conversations last night, but what we really wanted to have was a conversation about affordable housing. And I feel like that got smothered a little bit because of all the other issues around the selling of Lot 10, the loss of parking. And if there was a way for us to be able to communicate in advance on larger items that affect a multitude of people, potentially change rules or ordinances, if there's any way that we can potentially do something in advance so that it's not such a surprise and we get that kind of reaction. So I guess with that being said, I would like to add potentially in an upcoming work session, a discussion topic to see if there's something that we can do. I'm sure I have some ideas, but I'm sure you guys have some ideas too. And I think it would be worthwhile because in some cases it doesn't reflect well on this council And I think we all really want to do right by our public, right by the residents, right by our constituents. And that's not always the reaction we get. Thank you.
Ms. Dorsey.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. I'd just like to sort of piggyback on Councilman Travis's comments. We heard there was a lot of emotion in the room last night. We heard a lot about the growers market, not quite as much about affordable housing, which I think was the topic of the evening. I won't repeat my comments last night around the shortage and the need for affordable housing. Fact that it is part of our comprehensive plan, I think that we owe it to our constituents, all of our constituents, not just the majority of the folks that showed up last night, to really have that conversation. So I'd like to keep that front and center and really pursue what the options are here in the borough and how we can make that happen for our folks that are finding it hard to find livable space in our borough. So looking forward to continuing that conversation. And last but not least, I know that the mayor will be given a plug for the 225th anniversary celebration this Sunday. So want to remind everyone again about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn.
Greetings from the sweetest ward in the borough, the 6th Ward. We have a few things going on. Everything begins and starts in the 6th Ward because we're smack dab in the middle of the business district. The Books and Bakery on Gay Street is finally fully open. Hardback books for sale and homemade pastries that are out of this world being sold right next to 151 Whiskey. If you didn't see the building, it's right there next door. So it's Books and Bakery. On April 26th, we're going to have a film festival in the borough. And on May 3rd, the Spring Gallery Walk, because we won't see everyone until those times. And the adult Easter egg hunt, I was told, was a huge success. Thank you.
Ms. Simone.
So I prepared to say a few things, and I'm going to reiterate a couple of things that were said earlier. First, I wore my T-shirt. Vote, please vote. As Brian gave you all the details, much more, he was very much more diligent than I was. I was just going to say come out and vote on the 23rd, but please do vote. So that's important. Also, with the new businesses opening up, I actually personally wanted to give a special shout out to Dark Matter. I feel seen with all the black clothing in the window there, and I will get there. I'm very excited about this clothing store. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I want to frequent all the great businesses, but I really like Dark Matter, and I'm excited for that one on the street. And then finally, to what Brian and Lisa said, 100%. Make sure it's on the smart growth agenda for next month, and let's talk about this affordable housing and our options and things that we can do. I left as well the meeting last night, and we do need to continue the conversation. Maybe that wasn't the right answer last night, but let's see what we can do to find an answer. So, thank you.
Thank you. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, President. Actually, two things. I do want to give a shout out for the parade. It's 1 p.m. On Sunday afternoon, and we look forward to all of you. Thank you to all of the council people who can participate in the parade. We're so appreciative that you're going to be there. We have a former mayor, all the former mayors, including the wife of former Mayor Dick Yoder, are going to be in the parade. So we're very happy about that. So that's the first thing. That's this Sunday, April the 21st at 1 p.m. The second thing is on May 4th, right after the gallery walk, we have the Saturday cleanup. It's the Westchester Community Cleanup. We would encourage all of you to be a part of that. all of the council people, if you would. From 8 to 9, we'll be given free coffee and donuts and a little gift from the mayor here for participating in the cleanup. And so we urge you all to, sign up for that. You all got your flyers. Brian McGinnis.
I'm on it.
I'm saying. So, so we want you all to be there and participate, if you would, in the cleanup on May 4th. Third, I would say that affordable housing is a good topic. And Brian, Travis, I love what you had to say. We do as a board perhaps need to have communication and conversation informally, if you will, around 3 topics that I see being paramount. One being affordable housing. The second being truck traffic in the borough and reestablishing truck routes where they can be and not be on the streets, on these tender historic streets of Westchester. And of course, I forgot the third one. But I think these 3 things, and of course, parking. Parking is one of them. And I know that's being reviewed and looked at, but we need to have, zoning, I'm sorry, zoning is the third one. Zoning and looking at planning and zoning and picking people for the commission who have a background in planning and zoning. Because if we're talking about tweaking our planning and zoning for this borough, I mean, we need to have conversations as a group about, what are our plans? What does the comprehensive plan say? Read that again. And what is our 5-year plan, 10-year plan? Because they're real conversations that have to happen now. And so I think, including affordable housing, which is needed, and workforce housing and sustainable housing. These are conversations, we can't have them in a vacuum. We can't sit here and have them in a vacuum. Maybe we need to appoint people to lead these conversations with other groups that are on the same page and are interested in the same thing so that we can bring back to the committee and make valid suggestions that have future impacts. Because right now, I fear that our decisions are knee-jerk decisions based upon who's in the room and who's not in the room sometimes. Not all the time. The decision made yesterday was a good decision because it was too quick. The timing is everything, and the timing was not right. It was not vetted out. So it was a good decision to put a pin in it, to put a pause in it. But moving forward, we have to have these conversations with all these other organizations who are interested in the same thing. So thank you for your time.
Good evening, everyone. Just a couple of shout outs for the events that were perhaps missed already. So cleanup tomorrow in Marshall Square Park. Jordan, I don't know if you'll be there. Hopefully I will get over there at some point. Friday at 5:30 at May Day, there's a group called Fairness Pennsylvania that's having an event. It's a LGBTQ advocacy group. Children's Business Fair is on May 18th. And of course, there are lots of events coming up. So lots of them on the business, on the calendar for the borough. So keep on touch of that. And finally, regarding last night, as contentious and emotional as it was, I have to thank council for being respectful and listening to people. I think that's always what people want. They want to be listened to. So I'm disappointed we didn't get to the topic at hand, which is attainable housing, affordable housing. But we will get to that. There's more awareness of it now, but I think we treated our constituents properly in that setting. So thank you. Okay, moving on to discussion agenda. 5A, discuss the request of the Restoration Rail Committee for November 2024 ballot initiative.
Thank you, council, and thanks for spending a few minutes. Sorry for the confusion last night. We were in the hallway, but kind of boxed out there, I guess, when our item was called. So thanks for getting us on the agenda here. So thank you. And Jason couldn't be here today at a family gathering, so he apologized for that. With that said, during the scope of all of our stakeholder education about the project and those sorts of things, something thematic comes up, and it's like, all right, well, what's the support level, basically? And really, the best way to prove support would be to ask our citizens, how much, if they support restoration rail service to Westchester. So really a ballot referendum would help kind of prove that public mandate and provide the elected officials, various elected officials and agencies, the ammunition they may need to help get on board and support the project to restore rail service to Westchester. With that said, we've kind of fleshed out the process a bit here. We've been working with Chester County Voter Services, and Sean sent over a memo from the solicitor that was in 2021. There was basically the same question asked, what's the process to get a referendum on the ballot in November? And you'll see on the back, there's some snippets of that process from that memo. And that just kind of breaks everything down. So from a timing standpoint, voting next month would be ideal because it would give us a 30-day, a 1 month buffer. Otherwise, we're kind of up against it. The last possible time to vote to get it on the November ballot and delivered to the Chester County Board of Elections by the 13th Tuesday before the election, which is July 30th, would be the June 19th voting session would be the absolutely latest to vote. Essentially, the borough votes on and passes an ordinance that directs the Chester County Board of Elections to add the question. There's the question itself that can be up to 75 words long. And then there's the text itself, which are kind of two different things. If you turn over kind of what I showed you there, and this has been delivered to everybody today, I think it's better to start with like the text. And again, this is all draft, so whatever changes you want. So there's the Community Bill of Rights, which is Section 904 of the Home Rule Charter. Most folks will probably recall that there was a referendum in 2015 that passed with 72 or 73% of the vote that included the Community Bill of Rights in our Home Rule Charter. There's like 9 rights, like right to clean water, right to clean air, those sorts of things. So the proposal here is a 10th right. So just adding one more additional right in the Community Bill of Rights. The draft text is a right to clean, affordable, and sustainable rail transit service from Westchester to Philadelphia is hereby recognized as essential to our community's prosperity and environmental stewardship. This right ensures access to clean, affordable, and efficient public transportation that supports our commitment to reducing greenhouse gases, promoting energy efficiency, and providing equitable mobility and connectivity for all residents, aligning with our broader goals for a sustainable future. That's kind of like draft text. And then if you flip back over on the bottom there, you'll see the draft proposed question. And that is, shall Section 904 Community Bill of Rights of the Home Rule Charter of the Borough of Westchester be amended effective immediately, like right after the election, to include a right to clean, sustainable, and affordable rail transit service from Westchester to Philadelphia. Pretty straightforward, to the point. It's about rail, can't be confused. Ultimately, it's the Board of Elections that determines the text, but you provide them with what you want, and then they change it really however they want to. And with that, I mean, there's a lot more details, but that's kind of like the broader strokes. Just open it up for kind of questions really at this point.
Questions, comments?
I have a question. And I love what you're trying to do. But if I read this blind and had no concept of what you were doing, I would think you were guaranteeing me a train from Westchester to Philadelphia. And that's not what we're going to be doing.
Certainly not.
Right. So I'm concerned about that impression. There was a second thing that I started to write down. Let's just stick with that. I mean, I would love to, I think this is a good way to go about this. I like the idea of having this go out for vote. But I am concerned that we would not be able to fulfill the promise that could be perceived from this statement.
I understand, and we can play with the wordsmithing and all that. I mean, if you look at it in the context of the Community Bill of Rights, it's very clear that it's not promising anything. It's just saying, you know, we as a community, you know, we have a right to self-governance, and we have a right to these certain things as a community, and then it lists each of those rights. So as far as the wording is concerned, to make it sound less promissory or something, then we can certainly do that. The ask here is just to work with the solicitor to get the draft ordinance, you know, ready to go for next month. So we have a little bit of time to, you know, play with the wording, or, you know, change it however council would want it to be changed.
Other comments?
Just one question. Once it's on the ballot, what is the requirement to become a part of the home rule charter? Like, is it 50% of the population, or is it 50% of the voter registration? How do you know how that's calculated to get it on there?
I believe it's just the majority. So, you know,
Majority of what? I don't know.
of the total vote of whoever votes on the question.
So if there's only one vote, it passes?
It would be 50 plus 1.
50, yeah, 50% plus one
Yeah,
vote.
okay. Yeah, I didn't know how it worked. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you need 50 votes plus one.
No, 50%.
Oh, 50%.
Yeah,
Plus one, okay.
plus one vote.
So if 10 people vote, it could be sorry, if 10 people vote, it could be just that 5 people out of the entire borough agree with this statement, and that's not really saying a whole lot, right?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that when we go down the road, we know what our expectation is to get it done. You know, that's it. Yeah, I couldn't figure out how we get it done based on the amount of people that that actually vote in the borough.
Yeah, majority carries, just like any other election. You know, it's just like any of these people that are going to be on the ballot for various. I mean, that's how that works.
See, I wasn't counting on people saying no. I was only counting on people saying yes, but thank you.
Yeah, I mean, November is a presidential election. Historically, it's the biggest turnout that you get in an election. So as far as which elections would be best, it's definitely November. Yeah, Tuesday might be a little light. There's really not a lot on there.
I have a question. I'm sorry.
Ms. Simone?
Mhm. Yes, yes. That was unanimous. Correct. Yes. Well, I mean, the Borough Council said they back it, and that's great, and that's really helpful, and that's why we did that. Just think that this is stronger. It's much stronger. It's like, yeah, it's unquestionable. It's all the citizens, and I mean, it can really prove a mandate, regardless of individual council members' views, for example, that may not be consistent with their constituents, for example. So, I mean, it's, to me, it's, and to the committee, it's just a really strong statement to have, restoration of rail service as part of our home rule charter. And it's not completely changed. It's just adding, that one line or that one paragraph. And it's just stronger, really.
My questions were along the same lines of the mayor's, along with the resolution that we passed last year and the formation of the commission itself several years ago sort of speaks to the need and the desires of the community back then to restore rail service to Philadelphia. And I also wonder if the commission has done a study since COVID, right? And the number of people commuting into the city before COVID versus after COVID, and now working from home. I know that Philadelphia is struggling to get people back into into the offices, right? Back into into work. And if there's really that demand, I mean, I take the train every now and then into the city. It's very empty, to be quite honest. If I catch the train here in Exton or Paoli. So I have the same questions that the mayor had. I feel like this council has supported the commission by creating it based on, feedback that we've gotten from residents in the community. We supported you last year or the year before around passing the resolution. I'm questioning what this step accomplishes.
Yeah, I mean, my answer stands. I mean, it's the same answer. As far as ridership is concerned, I mean, it's not this topic, obviously, but we can, any questions anyone has about anything, I'm happy to try to address. Otherwise, we can bring it back to the committee and get a memo together and everything like that. As far as ridership's concerned, the DVRPC study of 2011 is still the prevailing ridership numbers. Those numbers are for 2030. So the 2011 study is actually for 2030. As far as when the COVID ridership, if and when the COVID ridership drops, come back to pre-COVID levels, I mean, it's really anyone's guess here. But populations will continue to grow. People will still have to go to work and everything else.
So,
Simone?
yes, so I have a couple of concerns like everyone else, and I don't know who else, but I do commute to Philadelphia 4 times a week. and I take the train either from Exton or Malvern or sometimes Paoli. I drive there and I don't mind. And seeing this update to the rule charter. Now, last week when you brought this to us, the conversation almost sounded like you wanted just like a poll, like, would you like to have the train in Westchester, right? And now you're coming to us with this memo that we just got that is asking to update the home rule charter and to say, to Sheila's point, we're giving people the right to have a clean train come from Westchester. I'm not sure I need that right, truthfully. The way I commute, I don't know if I need to have that right. I don't know if that's the same type of right as clean water. And I get nervous, like a few others have said, to try to update a home rule charter to say these things, because it almost, in the long term, whether it's short term or long term, in the long term, it could force hands for investments and things like that that we can't make. And I don't think, and right now that SEPTA's saying that they won't make. So I'm not sure that I would be able to support a question like this to update the home rule charter to give people the right. I could support a question of saying, hey, are you interested in having a train?
Yeah.
But I'm not sure I could support anything that would update our home rule charter, giving people the right to have a train in Westchester, because as much as I appreciate the work that you've done over the years, there's a lot of open questions. You know, I paid $800 for a one-bedroom apartment rent in 2011, so in Westchester Borough. So we know that's not happening anymore, right? Like after last night, we understand this is not a thing.
Yeah.
Similar, the ridership on SEPTA, not a thing. I go to the train on Mondays, nobody's there. I go to the train on Fridays, nobody's there. They're not getting that ridership, and I'm not sure where we would get the ridership either. And and to give people the right and potentially put our budget at risk is concerning to me.
Yeah, I mean, just to be clear, we're not giving anybody a right to a train. I mean,
Well,
just because we say you have a right to clean air, you have a right to clean water, you have a right to quiet enjoyment in your home, you're in the fourth ward. You know, it doesn't mean that you get it. It means you're saying that, you know, this is the fabric of Westchester. We've always had a train. You know, it's from since 1987. It's an anomaly that we don't have a train.
Hey, Jordan,
If you look back, but
do we, can we, if we removed sustainable rail transit service from this, does it weaken the ability to put this as a ballot question? Can we leave it as ensures the right to clean, affordable, and efficient public transportation and not be specific about the rail service part of it and still add this to the ballot? I think the concern is more the promissory aspect of we don't have this yet. So it's almost proposing that you have the ability to pursue affordable, sustainable rail service without actually having it in place. And I'm just wondering if we could do that without adding the specific mention of rail, keeping it public transportation, and still add the ballot question. I don't know if that's possible or not.
yeah, I mean, the issue there is that it kind of defeats the purpose if the question says just public transportation, right to public transportation.
I'm just trying to find a way I think the ballot question is a good idea. I'm just trying to find a way to get it in there.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is ultimately the Board of Elections can rewrite it. So based on, you know, the text and stuff. So if you're not very clear that it's rail, they might rewrite it and rail not be in there. So if you, for example, said public transportation, you know, for example, rail, they might not include the examples in the question. And then it's like, yeah, you know, of course, we're going to add a right to public transportation, but we haven't moved the needle forward at all with
Another
historic
question then,
preferences.
does this help us to obtain funding? Does this help us to convince SEPTA to work with us a little bit more clearly if we have the data that supports from our own voters to say that we want to restore it?
Yes, absolutely.
I have
And I
a
just
couple of
want to,
questions. Go ahead, Ms. Dorsey.
I just want to be clear. My question is not around the wording. My question is around the necessity to take this step. Just want to be clear. You know, the wording is not the issue for me.
Okay.
So that goes to my first question, which is is a home rule charter change required to have this initiative? We don't
So-
need that to have an initiative related to restoration of rail, correct?
Yeah, so in Pennsylvania, so we found this out, working with Chester County. In Pennsylvania, believe it or not, advisory questions are not allowed. They were common practice until 1990, and then the Commonwealth Court made clear that non-binding advisory questions are not permissible in Pennsylvania. So you're right. Originally, Nicole, I mean, it was a poll for all intents and purposes. It was like, hey, do you support this? Maybe there's another way to, skin the cat, as it were. But so then it's like, okay, well, how do you pivot so it's something that's binding? And then it's like, all right, well, if it's part of the home rule charter, it makes it even that much stronger and supports the funding initiatives and everything else that much more.
And so binding, I guess, is partly what concerns me. And this right ensures, again, I'm reiterating what others have said about this sounding promissory. I mean, because clean air, clean water, right to quality of life, they are actually things that we have to do something about. Clean water, we need to, spend money to clean up the streams.
Yeah.
We need to enforce noise ordinances. So this, to me, sounds like it obligates us to something financially, which I'm concerned about.
Understood. It doesn't, but understood.
I mean, my suggestion is that, we're not going to vote on this tonight, I don't believe. So I think we should take it back to smart growth would be the appropriate.
I do have one comment, and I think that to the concern is SEPTA could be potentially eliminating public transportation to Westchester. I think we're well aware of that. Those meetings were held with Senator Committa and Representative Pielli. Maybe the wording could be that Westchester citizens have a right to public transportation, in which case this would fall under. A ballot question is a ballot question. Any one of us could vote yes, we could vote no. I think that building momentum is a good thing. Gaining funding is a good thing. Connecting to Wawa or Media, Delaware County is a good thing. It promotes economic mobility. We're talking about affordable housing and public transportation. Those are good things, and I believe that this is a good endeavor. But again, there are concerns, in which case maybe rewriting the language and having it a little bit more broad-based, in which case it would include rail, because rail is public transportation.
Right.
And Westchester citizens should have a right. So maybe we could do something along those lines. I agree. I think it could build momentum. And I think it would be an asset for the community to have a rail line that would connect to Delaware County.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I believe the action here is to take it, and perhaps work with the Smart Growth Committee prior to next month.
Okay.
So we're going to have something, all of us, to see prior to, certainly before the work session. So in committee.
Yeah, I mean, it's and again, a lot of this is wordsmithing, but I mean, I guess the question here is if the wordsmithing is correct, I mean, is this something that Borough Council supports? Because otherwise, we can just call right now and pivot and try to figure out some other way to quantify the support of the public. But one way or another, we're going to need to change SEPTA's mind.
Well, I think to Brian, to Mr. McGinnis's point, that if there is some notion that SEPTA would not have service here for anything, I think it supports public transportation to here for our residents. So I think it does make sense to have something. I'm in agreement with that, but absolutely not the language.
And I'm not sure that that's an accurate statement. I think there is one bus line that's going to be discontinued, but not all SEPTA transportation. there are bus lines that are going to continue.
Probably says adequate access. One line.
There have been pivots in the way SEPTA is running. They're not cutting Westchester off. That's not there's been discussion of shutting down one line, but there is also on-demand busing, and there's things going on with SEPTA and with Chester County that are changing and different than they used to be. And people don't love change, but sometimes it can be beneficial.
And I would say if whatever, and I don't know which bus line it was, I'd like to know, but I'd be curious if the demand was there and the ridership was there, I'm sure they wouldn't have cut it, right? I'm assuming that they were losing money on whatever line that they were running, that they thought maybe we don't need it anymore. There's other options and there's not enough people riding it. So we just have to keep in mind too, how do we direct people more to the available? I mean, maybe that's a communication thing, like what's available, and make sure that our constituents know what's out there and what they can get to.
Yeah, I mean, the bus revolution is just bus cuts. And SEPTA is very, very Philadelphia centric. So most of our tax money goes somewhere else. And SEPTA really hasn't focused on Chester County and common sense solutions. SEPTA just is cutting the only bus service to Cheney University, the first historic Black college university in the country. They're down to 600 students. In 1987, when train service stopped, enrollments dropped 30% the next year. So I mean, this sort of thing is like survival for Cheney University. And I mean, we can talk about all the other Westchester University, the hospitals, everything like that. But maybe the best approach, Mayor, to your point, would be just updating the resolution, something like that, and then we can just have that as something new. I don't know. I mean, there's also organizations like the ICMA that do surveying, that will survey, professional surveys, that kind of thing. But having an ability to quantify the public support, which is vast, I think is really important for this project to get the kickstart it needs and help change.
It sounds like you're going to go back and look at perhaps another way to quantify public support other than changing the home rule charter.
Okay.
Is that a fair statement?
Well, I mean, I don't know. This seems like something that could be like a 4-3 or something, but that's not a good look either. I mean, as far as putting this on the ballot. So, we'll keep talking. I'll reach out to you offline and see what the best way forward is.
Yeah. The only other thing I was going to say is now I know train service has been restored to Phoenixville.
Not yet.
Or will be restored to Phoenixville and to Reading. And I was hopeful when I heard that announcement that they would also be considering Westchester in the long run at some point along the line. Along the line, the train line. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we can do this for 8% of the cost, less than 10% of the cost of SEPTA's full through service. In a sustainable way with a battery operated train. It's essentially just interim service, until SEPTA wants to run full through service. There's also been a gift proposed from RDC, which would gift the train sets and the associated infrastructure in the scope of $5 to $6 million of value. That would count as the local match and cover the 20% local match. And that would be sufficient for the full capital expense, the CapEx, to take the track from class 1, 15 miles per hour, to class 3, 60 miles per hour. These are things, this public-private partnership. I mean, this is a very unique opportunity, and finding a way now, soon, to quantify the public support, I think, is important. We can keep thinking about it, or if it's a wordsmithing thing, I know smart growth isn't going to be very very friendly. So I hesitate even wasting that time potentially. So I don't know. I'm not sure.
I'd
Not
like
sure.
to see maybe your group do a poll for the borough residents and let them answer it. I
Yeah.
think that would be equally as comprehensive as, you know, putting it on a ballot, because most people wouldn't even understand why it was part of the home rule ballot. This is about governance. This shouldn't be about rail service on a home rule ballot, in my humble opinion. But particularly if it somehow ties governance to this particular issue, when, as Nicole said, we're trying to keep up with everything else. We don't need to add something else to the pot at this point in time. Now, particularly when there's no buy-in from SEPTA. So if that changes, then, maybe we'll be in a position to change, but
Yeah, I mean, just to be clear there, I mean,
whether you go
sorry.
SEPTA route or not the SEPTA route or the electric route, I think, which is what you were looking at last.
Yeah.
Which everyone was excited about. I think we just need to back away from tying it into a home rule charter change.
Yeah, and if there's another way to poll residents that, I don't know, that
Maybe that's something,
that would be,
maybe that's
beyond
something you're-
a doubt,
Yeah.
the people couldn't
We should
question as
do.
being,
Okay, thank you very much.
yeah. So we'll continue to explore. Thank you.
Any public comment? Okay, thank you. Yes, we have public comment.
Hello, my name's Joe Slifer. I work with the Westchester Railroad. I just would like to bring to the room the big elephant in the room is, what do you do with Westchester Railroad if this continues? There's the last council. I'm not sure who the president, please forgive me. I'm not very good with public speaking, but the last president said that they were willing to do the 15-year lease for Westchester Railroad. And we are still waiting for the lease to come up. And I think we're in our second of a 5-year. There was a 15-year and then 1 year for 5 years. So there seems to be a delay tactic here to try and run this clock out. Battery trains sound great. I love that kind of stuff too. My professional business was automotive restoration and car repairs. I'm retired now, so I do understand the technical things. SEPTA is going to be a big hurdle to get over because they're a no. They're a no, and they've already said it a few times, and I don't know how they have to say it in order for it to sink in. But they're not interested. And I saw their estimates to bring the rail or the trains from, I guess it's from Wawa now to here, and they're talking in 18, they were talking 384 million. I saw the presentation that was put up maybe a year or so ago, and they were saying 17 million. I thought I heard the fellow tonight say that it would be 8% of that. The FRA would never go for that. And that's the Federal Railroad Association. So you probably need to speak with them first. Would be light rail. The guys now run heavy rail, and that's what the track is made for. But what do you do with them? They're a 25-year-old business that the fella stood up last night and talked all about it and how, he brings customers to Westchester. They don't cause any problem. They keep the property the way it should be. They do all the maintenance. The Westchester does not give them any money. They're self-sufficient. So what do you do about them? Do you move them aside? And let's face it, there's only one way that rail can come into Westchester, and that's that line. And I don't think SEPTA would ever go for it. So they're my 2 cents. I'm sorry if I took your time, but I thought I would just throw that at you. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So what we do with that line is we run both of them. It's called temporal separation. We both passenger rail service and the tourist train can and will exist together. There's 13 other locations in the country that works. There's a full plan for that. So we're working. We've tried our best to work with Westchester Railroad, and we continue to reach out to them every meeting. And these are train guys. Eventually, hopefully this is neat. This is really cool. These are more trains and passenger trains. And the history of Westchester is we had passenger trains. So, we're looking forward to when we can, when they're ready to reengage with us. We're here. They're 100% part of our plans. I know we're not part of theirs, but they're 100% part of our plans. And as far as SEPTA is concerned, we have brand new leadership. We have the vice chair of SEPTA is now Marion Moskowitz. After a very long period of time, we've met with Marion. She's had an information request. We're going to provide all that. So this really is a unique time, and SEPTA is changing, and hopefully we can bring some of our taxpayer money home. Thank you.
Okay. Let's move on to item 5B, appointment to board, committee, and commissions. Applicant Sarah Rogers for sustainability. I thought we had 2.
No, we had one last night. One didn't show up.
Oh, great.
Mr. McCoy, I'd like to make a recommendation that we appoint Sarah Rogers to the Sustainability Committee.
I was just going to say we appoint all the applicants to their respective committees. Would that be acceptable?
But we have 2 for civil service. I think we only have 1 alternate, correct?
I thought I thought Mr. Mitten also applied for planning.
He did.
And we extended the opening for planning commission for another month. So he's
Okay.
still potentially in the mix for the planning commission.
Why did
Okay.
we extend? Why did we extend the planning commission?
Because we initially had 3 candidates, and 2 of them dropped out last minute. And we wanted to see if we could get a larger pool of potential candidates. It had only been open for 3 weeks, correct?
Well, my opinion is, then why wouldn't we just have Mr. Eagles as civil service and move Mr. Mitten to planning commission?
I would agree with that. We've had the applicants take the time to fill out the application, apply. They came here last night. Mr. Mitten was here last night. Mr. Eagles was here last night, applied for the positions.
I was not here, but I did watch the recording, and I agree with appointing the first 3. Mr. Mittens, I would like to see him on the planning commission, but I do think that we opened it up last night, and we shouldn't just appoint him after opening it up. So my suggestion is that we appoint the first 3, hold Mr. Mitten until next month, and possibly appoint him then.
I agree with that.
And we really need to, Planning Commission is going to be a critical commission, because if they're going to be looking at zoning and rezoning and tweaking our zoning and looking at buildings as they come forward and the building, they need to have knowledge of that. I think the previous two people who dropped out had that kind of background, had that kind of experience. That's what we need to apply for Planning Commission.
I mean, I felt like Mr. Mitten, obviously he has a good background. He's a retired teacher, but he was interested in two different ones. I'm not sure that he was passionate about one versus the other, but I agree with given all the things we want to do with the Planning Commission to update the ordinances, that I would like to have some really strong candidates that have a background and more of a passion for the planning. So,
I'm fine. I don't recall making that recommendation last night, but if that's what happened, that's what happened. That's fine. He did, I do recall him now. I don't remember if it's public comment or comment to me, but he did express a preference to planning versus civil service.
Can I make a motion that we appoint Sarah Rogers, Kane Bender, and Rich Eagles?
I second.
Ms. Dorsey,
Yes.
Mr. Flynn,
Yes.
Ms. Vaccaro,
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Ms. Shimoni,
Yes.
and Mr. McCoy.
yes. Okay, moving on to item C, discuss the HARB 2024-06, 16 East Gay Street, Brian Messina.
This is a application made to HARB for a new dining platform in front of 16 East Gay Street. It's on the south side of Gay Street, on the unit block of Gay Street. At the time that HARB made its decision about the design worthiness of the proposal, which they have to do for new platforms, we were in the midst of we had a deadline of March 15th to assess all renewing platforms in the downtown district. So we couldn't make a decision in March, and then it kind of fell through the cracks here in April, and here we are at the April business meeting. So our plan to move forward, and I'd love to hear from what you have to say too, would be to approve the council to approve the certificate of appropriateness, which addresses the design of the platform. And then the platform could be issued on the condition of the owner obtaining a tenant that would actually be using it, because there's certain conditions about operating a dining platform that can only be satisfied when there's a tenant identified. Things like they have to go through certain training to serve alcohol, or there's a few other requirements. So as soon as we can identify that tenant, we could issue the permit on a conditional basis. So that's where we stand as of right now.
Hi, how are you? So we own the property. We had it listed for rent. Those all kind of fell through. We have other restaurants in the borough, so we are going to open a restaurant ourselves. Currently, it will not sell alcohol. It will just be tapas. So we would like, we've had the building for 3 years and it's kind of been an eyesore sitting vacant on Gay Street. So with Gay Street closing and with, the open air market, we've decided that we're going to open something ourselves just to get a tenant in there and have it ready for the season. So currently we won't be serving alcohol. There's no liquor license there. So it would just be dining.
But the motion tonight would be for the HARB certificate of appropriateness.
Essentially addressing the appropriateness of the design, which HARB did recommend approval of
Platform, yeah.
with about 5 conditions that the applicant can adhere to. And that was done on February 29th. So we do have that positive recommendation.
Can I ask when, I'm excited that you're going to try to put something in there because, yeah, I mean, and I've seen the signs that coming, not coming,
Yeah.
So when are you guys hoping to open up?
Hoping to open by Memorial Day. So we're doing some work to the building. But it's small. It wasn't, it's not conducive inside for restaurants. So now with Gay Street being closed and having the patio, essentially most of our seating would be outside. So.
Well, good luck with that.
And you'd be ready and willing to meet all those
Yeah.
5 things. So
Mhm.
I'm in full support. If you're willing to meet those, I would love, please go in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just, I'm probably part of the confusion and why it took a little bit longer to get through the channels properly. There is a limit to the number of dining platforms per block in your downtown district. You're not supposed to have more than 2. Those are the rules. And I just needed to understand where there were or weren't platforms, and I didn't have a building and housing director at the time when we were making those choices and decisions. So
We would currently be the only one in our block of Gay Street.
The color of the,
That was just a mock-up.
Pavers?
Now it's going to be pavers like the rest of the block.
it's going to be red.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Mr. McCoy, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the platform recommendation.
I'd like to second that.
Mr. Metrick, call the question.
Ms. Dorsey?
Yes.
Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
Ms. Vaccaro?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Travis? Ms. Shimoni?
Yes.
And Mr. McCoy?
Yes,
Thank you.
Good luck. Looking
Thank you.
forward to eating there.
7-0, thank you. Moving on to item D, discuss the Public Works fleet repairs.
This is an item for a purchase order of $14,700 to repair a front-end loader. That's part of our Public Works equipment. There is I almost called it an injury. There was a problem with the hydraulics that operate and manipulate the bucket on the front-end loader. So in order to do this repair, the thing has to be taken apart, and we have our best estimate here to do it. I wanted first of all to get this purchase approved. That's the action before council. But I think this is an illustration of some things that are a little bit difficult about our purchasing policy, and it's a little bit of an outlier. In order to get an estimate for this tractor, we have to put it on a trailer and tow it to a shop, which costs us $500. So in order to get 3 quotes, we would have had to spend $1,500 on a $14,000 repair. I didn't think that was right. So we got 1 quote. So that's in one way in which this doesn't comply with your purchasing policy. The second thing is that purchases over $10,000, according to purchasing policy, have to be either publicly bid or purchased through a CoStar's provider. We couldn't find a CoStar's provider in our area that works on these pieces of equipment, and it makes no sense to publicly bid a repair to a front-end loader. So I wanted to point those things out, and I would like to bring up a topic in finance next month where we could talk about maybe adjusting our our cost thresholds for bids and for getting 3 quotes so that we're on par with the Pennsylvania state standards, which are higher than those that are in your code. And that would require an ordinance of council to amend. We'll talk about that more. But I wanted you all to know the specifics of this one and why it's a little bit unorthodox and why I'm coming here asking for a $14,000 repair. And of course, if Don were here, he's not here because he's helping out West Goshen Township tonight. Not West Goshen, sorry, the East Bradford Township, talking about in-house trash services, because some of our neighbors are looking at bringing their trash service in-house, and we're one of the few around that do it. This is an important piece of equipment. We need it to move our concrete blocks downtown, so we need to get this thing fixed, and we couldn't anticipate the repair. It popped up.
Mr. McCoy, I'd like to make a recommendation that we approve the $14,700 expense for the fleet repair.
I'd like to second that.
Mr. Metrick, call the question.
Ms. Dorsey?
Yes.
Mr. Flynn?
Yeah,
Ms. Vaccaro?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis? Mr. Travis?
Yes.
Ms. Shimoni?
Yes.
And Mr. McCoy?
Yes.
7-0.
Item E, discuss special events application for the Budweiser Clydesdales Come to Westchester, May 23rd, 2024.
I think Mr. O'Brien shared this with us last night. as other business. Something that we've done in the past. It draws a huge crowd to the downtown. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the application for the Budweiser Clydesdale in Westchester on May.
I'd like to second that.
Mr. Metrick, call the question.
Ms. Dorsey?
Yes.
Mr. Flynn?
Yeah.
Ms. Vaccaro?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis? Mr. Travis?
Yes.
Ms. Shimoni?
Yes.
And Mr. McCoy?
Yes.
7-0.
Item number 6, the consent agenda.
Oh,
Mr. McCoy, I'd like to make a recommendation. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'm
I'd
gonna
like to
second it.
second that.
Mr. Metrick, please call the question.
I've been so slow on the button tonight. I was trying.
Ms. Dorsey?
Yes.
Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
Ms. Vaccaro?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Travis?
Yes.
Ms. Shimoni?
Yes.
And Mr. McCoy?
Yes. Carries 7-0. Is there any other business?
Darrell Cook, South Walnut Street. May the record note there was no public comment on the last 2 discussion items. Thank you.
What?
Oh.
What did he say?
Did you have something you wanted to say about those items?
It's the taxpayer's responsibility to fix the PC equipment required for closing of Gay Street without compensation from the businesses that will profit by its use. And
I think
thank
the
you.
piece of equipment's probably used for other things than just moving those cinder blocks for Gay Street. So it's
And-
not just for that. Otherwise, we'd be asking you to get out there and kind of move things around for us.
And how many times will it be used to close Gay Street? And open it back up?
It's 10 to 12 weeks.
I would not be surprised that it's the primary use for that piece of equipment. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other business? Okay, we are adjourned at 7:43. Thank you. Good night.
No, you can't cut down your tree.